This episode of The Inspiration Show is super extremely special because the incredible Sarah Grace Mariani is joining me on The Inspiration Show. Sarah Grace is an amazingly talented performer who is currently making her Broadway debut as Marcia in The Outsiders on Broadway. Thank you so much, Sarah Grace, for joining me on The Inspiration Show. It's such an honor.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk with you.
So, when did you discover that you had a passion for singing, dancing, theater, and the arts?
I've kind of just always done it. I had my first tap show when I was 3 years old, and we still have video footage of it. And I don't really perform very well in the phase, which is so funny to go back and watch. But I really just didn't stop. I started at 3 years old, and then continued in the direction that it would be my life and my career, and thankfully it has been.
Oh, it's amazing. I love it when, you start at a really young age and it's like something that you've always kind of had in your life. You don't really know life without it. And then it turns into this career and like it's something you
Mhm.
never thought you could possibly do. It's so awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's kind of a rare thing when people get to, do what they wanted to do when they were kids. I have so many journal entries that my mom has found recently of high school and even younger than that, just saying, I want to be on Broadway, I want to be a performer. And yeah, it's a rare thing when you get to say that your dreams came true.
Oh, it's so crazy. I mean, I think it's something that I feel like everyone kind of discovers in life, and then there's one certain milestone where it's like, holy, like I actually did it. Because like people say dreams come true, and I feel like all of us are kind of guilty of like that's kind of corny and no one really believes in it until you actually
Yeah,
have that moment and you're like, I actually did it.
yeah, and I think it's again, not to be cheesy, but I think it's an honor
Yeah.
to have that. And I this is again cheesy. I say this all the time, how I live in New York and I don't hate Times Square. It's not my favorite place to be, but I don't hate it because when I was a kid, that's where all my dreams were born when I first came here at 13 years old. And I want to honor that little kid that yeah, that started having these dreams when I stepped into Times Square,
I know.
the worst place in the world.
Yeah, I felt the exact same way. I made my off-Broadway debut this past summer, and, everybody's like, "Thank you." Everybody's like, "Oh, Times Square, like, it's so annoying, it's crazy, like, it's so busy," and, like, I totally get it,
Mhm.
I totally agree, I'm with you, but, like, it's the place where, like, all the dreams are, because like, you have all the bright lights, and, they always say
Mhm.
the lights will inspire you, and, I mean, they do, and then you got
They
Broadway around the
do.
corner, like, it's just so
Mhm.
awesome, like, I'm totally with you on the craziness
Yeah.
of it, but that's so
As
relatable, like
I think if you have headphones in and you're listening to something epic, it
yeah.
just feels like you're in a movie. So that's how I get through it.
100%. So, can you take me back to the first time you experienced theater and what that was like for you?
Gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't know if you heard that, but that was an announcement. See, the thing is, I don't remember my first time ever because it was sort of ingrained in us by my parents. My parents always took us to shows. Um, there are ones that stick out. I remember seeing Les Mis for the first time. I think it came through Indiana, where I grew up, the touring company, and I was just enthralled with that. And I obviously wanted to be Eponine,
Of course.
obviously from a very young age, and I just knew that was it. And then I also had a moment when Wicked came through, and I met the woman that played Nessa Rose. I got to meet her because a friend of a friend or whatever. And I remember thinking that was so cool. And dreaming of the day where that would be me, like an equivalent role. And now I'm doing it, which it's very special.
Yeah, I feel like that stage door experience, for us actors, when we make it, I don't want to say professionally, but when you kind of make it and then, you have your first stage door experience and you see
Hmm.
the kids that you were, I don't want to say like
Yes,
past life, but like also in a past life, but also like that younger,
kind of.
like I remember my first tour and my first time stepping out of a stage door and like seeing all these little kids and I'm like,
Hmm.
that was me and that still is me. And I think it's so crazy, when you get to reciprocate that feeling.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think that's why we do it too, even when we are. I mean, sometimes I don't do it, but
Yeah.
it's helpful to have that reminder, even if you are tired, even just to look out in the audience because we got bright lights in this show. We can see
Yeah.
everyone.
Oh, 100%.
Um, it's just so helpful to keep it fresh and new, and to meet people at the stage door and hear their stories about how the show impacted them, or they came from, across the world. You came for us to see this show. Yeah, it's an honor again to do it.
And sticking your head out of the Jacob's window and just like seeing everyone with their playbills, like I mean those windows are the greatest, but I mean just
Oh yeah,
like that crowd, I can't imagine like what that must be like every night.
it's nuts. It's like we're
Incredible.
fake rock stars.
Fake rock. No, you're by rock stars. You're real rock stars. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm so curious about this next one because where did you grow up and what was it like being exposed to theater in all these different places? Because I saw that you lived in Tokyo for a bit. So
Yeah,
like,
we did. Yeah, I was born in Indiana. We lived in California for about 2 years, and then we moved to Tokyo when I was a kid. It was the ages were 4 to 8, so I was young, but they were very formidable years, and I remember so much of it. Um, and I think that, I mean, that's probably where I would say I first really started dancing. Um, at my studio there that was attached to my school, and I did my first Nutcracker with the Tokyo Ballet Company, and my mom always tells me that when we moved back to the States, I was like, I need to do another Nutcracker. How do I find that? So I would say that the bug was just like, bitten at a young age, but
yep,
it just kept going.
I say that all the time. Got bit by the theater and dance bug, and it's the best bug
Mhm.
that you'll ever get bit by.
It's so true. Much better than a mosquito.
Yeah. So during your time in Tokyo, were you exposed to any local theater productions there that had a significant impact on you?
Yes, I remember my parents took us to a production of Annie, which was obviously all in Japanese, except
Wow.
for they would be like tomorrow, tomorrow, and then the rest of it was in
In
Japanese.
Japanese,
And
I
I,
love that.
I just it's kind of like a fever dream in my head, but I remember that.
Yeah.
Um, and we talk about it all the time. Yeah, my parents were really really great at exposing us to all different kinds of theater and music and dance as kids. So it feels just organic, part of my upbringing.
Yeah, it's incredible, and it's just so awesome that, you get to do it every day.
I know. I'm
Yeah,
really lucky. I'm
the best.
really lucky.
So, given your incredible and diverse dance background, what initially kind of sparked your passion for dance and drew you to pursuing it as a career?
That's a great question. Again, it was just sort of always there for me. There was never really a question that I wouldn't do it. When we moved back to the States, I was like, I got to find a studio. I have to keep dancing. There was no part of me that ever thought about quitting. Um, but I also, at the same time, I was very concerned about labels as a kid. And I wanted people to know that I was not just a dancer. I remember that thought pattern was just stuck in my head. And it still kind of exists today because people like to put performers in boxes, and we do it inevitably. So there's not, I mean, it's no one's fault, but from a young age, I wanted people to know that I'm an actor too. I'm a singer too. Most of my time was spent dancing because I mean, I think it takes up the most training time. But because of that, I wasn't sure that I wanted to be a dancer in college. So I kind of kept my options open, wasn't sure if I wanted to go to school. But I auditioned for 3 musical theater schools and I didn't get into any of them, which is not surprising, honestly, because I didn't know what I was doing. Because again, I hadn't trained really in that aspect. I've been taking voice lessons my whole life and singing my whole life, but I think musical theater schools, there's something different about. I wasn't prepared. So I didn't get into any of them. And my dad was the one that said, well, you've been dancing your whole life. You've been training in this your whole life. You might as well audition for a dance program. So I did. There was one girl who had gone to Florida State from my ballet studio, and I genuinely was like, "Well, I guess I'll audition there." So I went. I auditioned. Didn't tour the school at all. Just saw the dance building, and then I got in, and I was like, "Well, I guess I'll go." It really was that nonchalant, which is, kind of surprising for me as a person who thinks through decisions most of the time. It was very, well, so, so I went to Florida State as
I
a
love
dancer.
that story, and I love that you said, like, it was so nonchalant because I know, like, with college, and I think especially experiencing it now, it's like, "Where am I gonna go? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna study?" It's, like, all
Yes.
like, "Oh my god," like,
So,
so many thoughts, yeah, and then it's
so
like
sorry. I'm so sorry.
No
I thought she
worries.
was here. I just took her room.
But yeah, like I was saying, it's so crazy that, it was so nonchalant for you and that, you
Hmm.
kinda just meant to be, you went and did it, and here you are today.
Yeah, I think it's uh, just the way that it was supposed to happen for me. Because when I was a kid, I had these dreams, but for whatever reason, I didn't really think that they would come true for me, but it didn't stop me from just living my life and making choices pretending that it was going to happen,
Yeah.
which I guess it worked.
Oh, 100%. So, having studied at various dance institutions, how do you think that your dance training has contributed to your growth as a dancer and prepared you for a career on Broadway and in theater?
I think it's a great base to have as like a ballet dancer and contemporary dancer, especially in this sort of time of theater, because I think not every show at all, but a lot of shows are um, getting a bit more grounded and um, contemporary in their movement style. So I think that worked out for me. But the thing that didn't work out well for me is I actually can't tap at all. I don't tap. And a lot of classic musical theater, there's tap in it. So I think it prepared me in a lot of ways. It made me the dancer that I am today in my own specific style of movement. Um, but I think there are a lot of things that I wasn't prepared for going to a dance school like that. Even moving up to New York, it was very, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what it was like to audition for a Broadway show. I didn't even know what regional theater was. I was very unprepared. It was just a lot of learning as I went, which I think is just kind of how it happens.
Oh, definitely. I mean, learn as you go because, like, those experiences, it's kind of like you get a tool every time you have an experience, and then it kind of builds up your toolbox. And I think that's kind of
Yeah.
what about, studying various types of dance. I mean, like, as a dancer myself too, you go through so much training and you learn so
Hmm.
much and all these different styles, and you're like, okay, now how do I use it? So I
Yeah.
think that's really awesome
Hmm.
that you had that experience.
Yeah. I think so too. Yeah, sometimes I am like, oh, maybe I should go to a competition studio so I could do more tricks. Or maybe I should know how to tap.
Yeah.
But I don't and I can't. But here we are.
I got you on the
So
tap. Next time I see you, we can do like basic tap in between
I'm
shows.
gonna need it. I can do a flap. That's like it.
That's something. That's something. Gotta start somewhere. So,
Yeah, yeah.
can you share a little bit about your favorite dance performance you've been part of and why it's your favorite?
Oh, that's a great question. I haven't thought about this in a while, but I when I first moved to the city, my first professional job was um it was like this video that we did. Cindy Salgado was the choreographer, and Dee Watts wrote this spoken word that was based on the shooting in the nightclub in Orlando. And we did this just this movement piece to his words, and we shot it, and it's called Had She Never Asked Me, and I think it's still up online. But it was a really special project because of the weight of it and the meat of what it was. But also, I met a lot of my really incredible friends, people I know to this day, people that I've worked with now. to this day in that project, and that was like baby Sarah Grace. I just moved here. I was 21, and yeah, it was the first thing I did, I'm still really proud of it.
Oh, that's so beautiful and so powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you portrayed the role of Meg in the national tour of Phantom of the Opera. What was your experience like touring with this beloved and iconic production?
Yes, I had a great time touring. I know it's not always the case, but I think I got very lucky. My friends, and we're still friends, like basically the whole cast. We talk about this all the time, how we got very lucky with our tour. I think our group of people was really special. So I came in at the end of it. The tour itself had been going on for 7 years. Um, and I came in at the very end. So I did the last like year and a half. And by that time, there were people still on the tour that had been there from the beginning, which is just wild.
Why?
One of them is my roommate now, actually.
No way.
Um, yeah. And then there was like a group of us that kind of came in towards the end. And it was just a really, yeah, it was a really special bunch. I was like the youngest. I was 24 at the time, and the oldest was somewhere in their 50s. So I think it was a very good mix of ages, levels of experience, that we didn't like, there wasn't too much drama, and we just had a good time, and we had amazing sit downs. We were like 5 weeks in Hawaii, 7 weeks in California. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
it was great, and I learned a lot on that tour because I had done one other job regionally right before it, so I really didn't know anything. I still didn't know how to do pin curls. I didn't know that you had to mic check in every city. I don't know, and I was a principal too, and I was just like sort of thrust into that um, type of bravery pretty quickly, which I think was good for me. I didn't really have a lot of time to think about it. It was really quick. The whole process of me getting into it. I found out that I booked it and had to leave my my apartment in a week. So it was a lot of just okay, just do it. And I think that works well for me when there's not time
Thank you.
to worry. Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I feel like when you don't really have the time to worry, it's kind of like allowing you to be more present in the moment. So I
Hmm.
think that that really helps, especially when you're doing theater in a show like Phantom.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it was a great time. I loved playing Meg too. I think so many parallels between Meg and Marcia. We love a best friend role.
Yeah,
But yeah, she was so fun. I just got to play, and I got to sing and dance and act, which is so ideal for me,
yes, triple threat.
the girl who doesn't want a label, no boxes. So it was a really, really good time. I look back on that show very fondly. Very, and I can't believe it's been 4 years, almost 5 years since we closed. Time is it was mm, it was
Yeah,
like yesterday. Time is stupid.
totally agree. Totally
No,
100% agree when it comes to like
yeah.
closings, and I'll get like a 1 year ago today, this show closed. This was my first tour destination. Where did the time go?
I don't know. I genuinely don't understand.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
no.
So what was your process like prepping for Phantom and for a national tour? And now that you said I kind of want to add a part onto that, what was it like, jumping into a tour, like you said, kind of
Mm.
toward the end, being especially being a principal?
Yeah, you know what it is? Friendship wise, it was very interesting for me because I'm a person that needs to form those bonds pretty quickly.
Me too.
Um, and so that's kind of what I did. I just immediately started getting coffee with people, or if I saw people hanging out and be like, hey, I'll come, and just sort of inserted myself, which really just worked out because everyone was really welcoming and kind. But it's interesting, like taking over, a beloved role and beloved, former company members role. Um, but I think I just tried to focus on what I brought to Meg, but also just what I brought to the company as a person, because that really matters too when you're on the road. Like those are your people. Those are the people that you hang out with. Here, I've been thinking about these differences a lot recently, the difference between tour and doing a show here, because um, you don't have to maintain a life outside of, well, for the most part, you don't have to maintain a life outside of the show when you're on the road. And here you do, and you have the opportunity to. So it's a blessing and a curse, I think. But yeah. So as far as prepping for Meg, there didn't really have any time at all. I think I've been dancing my entire life. So the point work was not an issue for me. I was ready to go because I have been, I guess like prepping my entire life for a role like that, because I've been training, putting in my 10,000 hours, like that book. I don't know if you've ever read that, but I have been doing that since I was a kid. So that was good. And then the rehearsal process was very quick. I think it was 2 weeks, but I was also in the middle of doing that, flying back and forth to New York because I had booked like an episode of Fosse Verdon. So I begged the producers of Phantom to let me do this one episode. And so I was going back and forth, um, which was a bit crazy. So I had my 2 weeks of rehearsal. I flew back to New York. My sister got married during that time, and then I shot in New York. And then the day after we shot the episode, um, I flew to Omaha, Nebraska. So there was 2 weeks in between when I had rehearsals and when I had my debut. It was a crazy story. Missed all my flights, missed a photo shoot I was supposed to be at. Got there, had like a brush up vocal rehearsal with these two people that I had never met before. Napped for like 45 minutes because I had slept 2 hours the night before, and then made my debut that night. So we were like off to the races, and she's like, okay.
That's insane.
It was a crazy story. If I think about it too much, I don't really know how I did it. But again, like I said, it's better to just do
Exactly, just
just
do.
do it. Just do
Exactly.
it.
We are
Just
a
do
Nike ad, just do it.
it. Yes,
Yeah,
that's Nike.
for legal
You
reasons
want
we
to
are
hire me?
like yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
What was your audition process like for a show like Phantom?
I probably auditioned for Phantom 6 or 7 times over the course of 2 years when I moved to New York in 2016. Booked it in 2018. I just would go to the ECCs all the time, the Equity Chorus calls, for both Broadway and for tour. And the teams were different, but I had been in several times. And I think about 6 months prior, 9 months prior, I had been in for that company again, the touring company, and just for ensemble or like a ballet dancer. And I didn't get it. But I remember the girl who did get it. She was in my audition with me. So then 6 months later, I joined them on tour. That's nice. You
Wow.
never know. I just keep showing up,
Yeah,
honestly.
you never know. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are currently making your Broadway debut as Marcia in The Outsiders on Broadway. So, before getting cast in the show, were you at all familiar with the story or have any like connection to it? And why did you feel that it was so important for you to tell this story?
You know what's funny is I never read it.
No.
I moved schools a lot growing up. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
kind of think that I just missed it
Got lost in translation.
somehow. Yeah. So I had never read it. I'd never seen the movie. Um, but the only connection I had is that Tilly, who plays Ace in the show, she and I had been friends for years. So when they were in La Jolla, I was in LA just visiting friends, and I was like, oh, I guess I'll drive down to San Diego to see it because that'd be fun to see Tilly in the show. So I saw their like third preview when they were out of town in La Jolla, um, which is so crazy because then 6 months later I got the appointment for the workshops of for Marcia. So it was super unexpected. Well, actually, I had even auditioned for La Jolla. I always forget about that. I auditioned for it, got cut immediately. So
No way.
sometimes that happens. Sometimes that happens, and I think whatever it was, a bad day, or they just didn't see me, which
Yeah.
that happens all the time in audition. Your eye just doesn't go to someone, and but yeah, it came back around for me, which was again just really lucky, really lucky. I don't know how it happened. So I booked the workshops. I think in around July of last year, and did the workshops in August and September, and found out I was doing Broadway in between those.
So I know you had such a crazy journey that you just shared, like from La Jolla
Mhm.
to the workshop. So, now having done the workshops and, being with the show, bringing it to this huge medium that's Broadway, how do you feel that your Marcia kind of like evolved, from the workshops to Broadway? I know like there was cut songs, cut scenes, and how did
Yeah.
that change the character for you and like for you as an actor, as Sarah Grace?
Mhm. Yeah, so much. I feel a lot of ownership over her now, which is really special and really helpful in my portrayal of Marcia, and what we worked with the team to develop. She changed a lot from La Jolla. I don't really remember um, all of what she was in La Jolla, but I know she was like a principal in La Jolla, and they needed to condense the amount of people. So they combined her role with a dancer track, and so that's what Marcia is now. And I think because of that, some really interesting things have come out of it. I like to talk about you've seen the show, yeah?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. In sorry, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Injustice for
Just for
Tulsa, when
Tulsa. Mhm.
Marcia ends up staying with the Socs and betraying Cherry, the reality of what that is they needed me to stay on stage with the ensemble to finish out that number. That's why they needed me. So we had to work to get to why would she stay? Why would she go against her best friend who she really
Intention.
has stuck by? So that is now kind of how Marcia is defined and how I describe her in interviews or people who ask, is she's the conflicted one, and she's very in the middle of the socials and the greasers, because she is really curious and really interested in how they live and who they are, and she flirts with them, and then she flirts with the idea of them, but ultimately she's also complicit in the violence, because she isn't brave enough to like actually take that step away from her group of friends. So I think it's very important to see that kind of character on stage, because I think it honestly relates to a lot of how people handle
Yeah.
controversy in life today. Um, so it's not great. Like she doesn't end up being the good one in the end. She ends up being scared and vulnerable, and not willing to go where she wants to go. But all of that is really because they needed me to stay on stage with my
Yes.
flashlight. So, but
Yes.
even then, I was like, I wouldn't take the flashlight. I wouldn't do any of these things
Right.
because she's still sad about it. And so it's really just acting choice after acting choice after acting choice to make it um, believable for me, for Marcia, and for the audience, for the show as a whole. So I feel ownership over that, with with the help of Danya and Adam and the Coopermans. All of that
Mhm.
is because of that one moment in rehearsal.
Yeah, no, it was so beautiful to kind of see like the evolvement of these characters that we know so well from the books and now seeing them
Mhm.
like on stage and how they
Yeah.
kind of act in everyday life right in front of you. And what really stood out to me was like exploring the love stories that we didn't really see in
Mm.
the book, like the Pony Boy, Cherry, and then I know this was cut, but it was in the workshop, so I'm gonna bring it up, like the
Yeah.
Martha and Two-Bit love story. And I know
Yes.
there was
Yes.
a song. I'm just asking for my own curiosity. Did
I
you guys
know.
ever do
Yeah.
the song in the workshop?
No, I've never even heard it. But Daryl and I do want to learn it, and I think we should sing it together at some point, because we
Please.
we people miss it all the time. People bring up Marcia Tuba all the time, and we do. It is there. If
It's
you if
there
you
in the
look at
show.
us,
It's there.
if you look at us interacting,
There.
we're doing it. We're doing it. But also, Marcia has a boyfriend. Marcia has Trip.
Right.
But again, she's very like interested, curious. So we keep that alive,
Yeah.
for the fans and for the lore and for
Oh, Lord,
ourselves,
yes.
just because it's fun.
Do it
But
for the
yeah,
fun.
I miss it. I haven't heard the song, but I do. Yeah, we'll learn it and sing it for the people at some point. Yeah,
Oh, yes. So, what is your favorite part about portraying Marcia and getting to tell this beloved story on Broadway?
I think it's just that it's showing being able to play someone who is so conflicted and complicated and complicit. I did not mean to say all the words, use alliteration in that moment,
It's
but
alliteration.
it is alliteration. She's conflicted, complicated, and complicit. And I think it's really fun to flex that muscle and see that and portray that. And I just love the play of it all. The play in, even in the opening number, the play of it in Drive-In, we're just messing with each other and just being humans. Just, I'm it's so fun and it's so alive. And then on the flip side of that, I also really love that I get to be the boy Soch as well. I think
Yep.
I again get to do
Shout out
all the
Sergey.
things that I get to do all the things that I want to do, and being in the Rumble is really exhilarating. And I love my fight with Steve.
Yes.
It's so fun. It's so good. It's
Oh,
great. I like that we're able to do both, and I know that Melody feels the same.
oh yeah, no, it's the best.
Mhm.
So, you also got to record an original Broadway cast album for The Outsiders. What was that experience like for you being in the studio? Being
So
in the
surreal.
studio?
I've never been in a studio before. I think all of these things, these bucket list moments that I have wanted to do forever, but the fact that it's all come with like this Broadway debut, it's very special. Like, how, again, I use this word all the time, but how lucky did we get to do all of this? I mean, my first Broadway show just happens to be, one that gets a cast album, one that original Broadway casting. That was always my dream. Just thought it would be later. Um, Not the first one. So again, I just luck of the draw. So recording the cast album and doing the Tonys and
Yeah.
doing like Good Morning America, just all these things that we've gotten to do as part of an original Broadway cast. It's still surreal to me. Being in that recording studio with all the history that is just rooted deeply there. It was so special. It was so special. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so awesome. That cast recording, it's on repeat always. It's gonna be all the songs are gonna be from The Outsiders, my Spotify Wrap this year. I'm calling it.
I love that. I love that. Honestly, probably mine too. I listen to Stay Gold all the
Oh, tears every time.
time.
So, what aspects of the show and embodying Marcia have brought you the most enjoyment thus far, and what are your aspirations as the show continues its run?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think kind of what I've been saying, just the duality of what I get to do on stage. Again, I think Melody will say the same thing. I feel really fulfilled being able to do both things. And also to like understudy Cherry once in a while too. It's really flexing a lot of muscles and working my brain and my body and my mind and my heart all in these really just fulfilling fulfilling ways. And as for the future, I'm pretty content right now. But I got to swing out and watch the show for the first time last week, 2 weeks ago, which was a very special moment because when you're in it, we've never seen it. We don't know what the audience is experiencing beyond what we put together in the rehearsal room, and that's why I miss the rehearsal room a lot because we got to be more involved and see it, especially the moments that we're not in as associates. Um, so I miss that a lot. But being able to watch it and see moments I've never seen before, hear things I never heard before, because we do not hear on stage what the audience hears, which is a bit of a bummer, but obviously it's a practicality thing, so that makes sense. But just watching my friends be great was really inspiring, and it made me just want to do more and be more. And I don't know what that really looks like moving forward, but I'd love to like create something again like this and make something my own because it's really special.
Yeah, oh, it's so special. I mean, getting to see that transpired on stage, right in front of you, you feel so inspired, seeing all these events that you read on a page, coming
Hmm.
to life right before your eyes. Like it's so special to get to experience.
Yeah, yeah. And I think sitting in the audience,
Yeah,
not that it was the first time that I saw that or felt that, but it just sort of re-emphasized
yeah,
what we're doing and what people are experiencing. It's like the stage door moments, you
yeah.
know. Yeah,
So you also understudy the role of Cherry Valance in the show. So how has
absolutely.
your experience been understudying this role, and how has it enriched your understanding of the story from these different perspectives?
Oh, that's a great question. It's the experience I've been on one time, and it
We're
was
gonna talk about that.
very,
Yeah.
very scary and really good
Yeah.
to to experience that shot out of the cannon moment. I found out that morning that I was going to be on. So I think it would have been nice to have some preparation, but I had had my put in
Oh yeah.
for Cherry 2.5 months prior. And before the put in, I had two rehearsals, 2.5 rehearsals, and that's it. That's all I had. And I feel like I should have had more. Not that I should have. I mean, timing, it just doesn't work out that way.
Yeah.
I'd also never seen the show. I'd never trailed Cherry. I'd never watched her track. Didn't know anything. So it was a moment of like, well, buck up and do it because you have to. I got a call from my stage manager that morning, and we had literally talked 3 days before. And she was like, I'm sorry, we haven't been able to schedule for any Cherry rehearsals, but you're going to get some soon. And then she called me that morning. She was like, okay, so your rehearsal is on stage today at the show and get there. So I had like a little brush up vocal rehearsal with our music director. And then it was just kind of like take a number by number by number and try to
Yeah.
remember what was going on. Unfortunately, I did a flub in the beginning of drive-in because I couldn't hear the music. So I came in early and then I
Oh,
fixed it, but it like threw me off,
yeah.
and that's Cherry's longest time on stage. So it was a lot of stop, like be a
Mhm.
goldfish, a Ted Lasso reference, if you will. Like
Yes.
let it go, forget it, compartmentalize. You got to keep going, you got to keep going, and you got to keep going. So it was uh I was proud of myself, but it took me a minute to be
Yeah.
proud of myself, and I'm really excited for the opportunity to do it again at some point with a bit more
Yeah.
yeah, a bit more experience.
'Cause you had 2 hours notice before your
Yeah.
like you
Hmm.
said. What was going through your head, especially, like, what you said with, not having so much rehearsal, like, 2 hours notice, how did you use those 2 hours to kind of prep?
Well, I immediately started warming up my voice.
Yeah.
And again, just sort of compartmentalizing, which is not something I'm great at, but I was really like, okay, don't think about the fear. Don't think about the fear. Don't do that. And yeah, it was me just warming up my voice and getting ready to go because I had to like, be at the theater for that rehearsal. And then I went on stage and ran through, and I was running through the track
Mhm.
in my head on the train going downtown. And then I just had my book and my notes out, and I had like a little tracking sheet that I made for my put in, and I would take that around with me to be like, okay, when it's not even like your lines on stage and the music and the acting choices, it's also what you're doing backstage and when you're supposed to enter. And you're going to enter when Daryl says this, but also when Soda Pop says this, and then you're going to knock on this, and it's just you know things that really only come with doing it over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite scene, song, or moment in the show that you look forward to performing every day?
I don't know if it's a favorite because I really like all the movie stuff. Like I love doing drive-in. I love doing I could talk to you all night. It's really fun. We're just sitting on the car hanging out.
Yeah.
And then Justice for Tulsa is fun for me, acting wise and singing wise. Love singing that song. Love singing Little Brother, and I love doing the Rumble. I don't think I have a favorite. The answer is no.
All of them. I know, I can't pick a favorite either.
Yeah,
All of them.
yeah.
And, of course, we gotta talk about Sergey and Melvin.
We
Take me
must.
through what do you do during the show? And, like, that's a crazy quick change because I know you leave some of your makeup on, but you go, like, full boy, and then you're back into Marcia. Like,
It's
take
true.
me through that.
It is true. The first time we are boys is for Run Run Brother, and we don't take our makeup off for that because you can't really see us when we're up on the what do you call it?
Like the rails. Yeah, you're like up.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Second floor? I don't know. Up
Yeah.
there. You can't see us, and then it's pretty dark in Run Run Brother, so we don't take our makeup off for that. Because we just have to put it right back on for Justice for Tulsa. And then after Justice for Tulsa, we change back into boys, and that's when we can take our makeup off because we're boy, 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 and then girl at the very end. So, and then the quick change is from the Rumble, which we're wet, into we are back to girls for little brother, but we don't redo our makeup because we're facing upstage and there's not time for that.
Yeah.
And then we'll go and reapply our makeup for the final number.
Oh my gosh, that's
Which is fun. We've both gotten pretty good at it, pretty quick.
craziness of quick changes. How much time do you have to like reapply and then run back down?
There's more than enough time.
Oh, so then you're
It's
good.
funny. The
Yeah.
only like quick one is the wet change.
Yeah.
But even then, we've mastered it. I remember the first time I did it, my heart was beating really fast.
Mhm.
And the wardrobe supervisor was like, "You okay? Calm down. You have more than enough time." And she was absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, who would you say has been your biggest inspiration throughout your career?
Oh, wow. I've never had a great answer for this question before. I think it's because I never really idolized one person. It was more just this, amorphous thought and goal that I had rather than wanting to be like someone in particular. I think now I look at people whose careers I want to emulate, and I mean it's a number of people, but it's all people that are constantly moving from stage to screen and stage to screen, and doing work um, that is important, but then also choosing something that's just fun to do. Just having that flexibility of of play again in this career. So I it's so funny. I've never been like this is the person. It's more a matter of this big want that I had, and then also all of the people in my life that have consistently lifted me up and encouraged me to keep going. Um, because I have a really hard time believing that I'm good at things and that I like belong here. So I've always needed people beside me to build me up. So maybe that's an answer. I don't know. I think I need to
Yeah, no,
talk about this a bit
that's a
more.
beautiful answer. I love that. Yeah. So, looking back on everything you have achieved in this industry, what advice would you give your younger self entering the industry?
I I never thought about giving up at all until COVID.
Mm.
I had 3 surgeries during COVID, and that really kind of wrecked me confidence wise and also stamina wise. Yeah, I was not the same dancer, not the same singer because I had sinus surgery and I had hip surgery, and it took me a way longer time to recover than either of my surgeons thought. So I remember the first moment that I thought about giving up, and that was a really scary thing for me because, like I said before, I wasn't great at believing that I was good, but I was really good at persevering. Um, I was so good at that. So when that faltered for the first time, it really, it really freaked me out. But I didn't stop. So all of that to say, and then again, like when I moved to New York, like again, I hadn't recovered, and I wasn't getting into rooms to audition. I couldn't. Like I don't know. I'd been on tour before, so people didn't guess maybe remember me, or it just wasn't happening. So I got a corporate job, and I was like working this corporate job. And again, I had a second moment where I was like, it's probably not going to happen. And then a month later, I got the appointment for the show. So I think it really would just be plain and simply, you have to keep going. And it sounds very, you know, simple because I think it is, but it is a hard thing to continue when it's, no after no after no after no, and then your body tells you no, and then your head is telling you no. So that was a very roundabout way of saying I just think perseverance is like the people who make it, whatever
Yeah.
that means. It's just the people that continue. So I would say one other thing too, is while your life is maybe not fulfilling you in the way you want it to in terms of jobs, you got to keep it interesting outside. I'm a big proponent of living your life well. So although I was working in this health tech venture capital field, I made sure to enjoy New York, and I had great friends, and I did fun things, just to sustain just to sustain myself while I didn't have the thing that I ultimately wanted, which I think is also important. You have to build a life, and it takes courage and intentionality to do that. So that was my 5-minute answer for that
Oh,
question.
I love it. Thank you so much, Sarah Grace, for joining me on the Inspiration Show. You've truly been one of my biggest inspirations and have impacted my life and theater journey so positively. So it's such an honor to watch you shine on stage and to get to have you here. Thank you for inspiring me.
Oh man, that is so kind and so sweet. You're so welcome. Thank you for having me. This is so much fun, so cathartic.
Thank you.